Hey, it's me, Vicki Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now, I just wanted to come on and talk about this. Is one of those crazy stories again, but that are real. You know, true crime is definitely stranger than fiction. And for this case, we're going back to November the 16th, 1989, where this lady, this 22-year-old girl, mother of a 3-year-old son, Julie Hog, disappeared. Just disappeared. She was supposed to be going to a hospital appointment. She'd asked her mum to go with her, Anne Ming. This is her mum. This is actually Sheridan Smith, who played her mum in a TV series. That's what I'm going to talk about in a moment. This is her actual mum, Anne. And this case, you may have heard about it if you're in the UK. It's currently a TV series on ITV. I would definitely recommend you watch it. The first episode was on last night, but there's another 3 episodes to go. Just so interesting because it's based on fact. And Julie's mum is played by Sheridan Smith, which probably most of you know is a very, very good actress. So what happened? Where did Julie go? You know, a 22-year-old woman just disappears, a mother of a 3-year-old son. Well, you can imagine what happened when Anne Ming, the mum, went to the police initially. It was, oh, well, she's a young girl. She was separated or maybe even divorced from her husband. And he was living quite far away. Or she was separating, that's right. She was in the process of separation from her husband, from the father of her child. And so, of course, he came under suspicion, as you could imagine. But Anne Ming, her mother immediately said it can't be anything to do with him. But, of course, you never know, do you? You just never know. Anyway, she went round to the house. She couldn't find her. She hadn't taken anything with her. As far as she could see, the only clothes that were missing were the clothes that she'd seen her in the day before, that she'd been wearing the day before. There was nothing else missing. Of course, in those days, there weren't mobile phones because this is, 1989. So no mobile phones. So nowadays, people would, know if the mobile had gone missing or there'd be data extracted from the phone, etc. But not in 1989. So literally, in a puff of smoke, Julie had literally just disappeared. 1 minute she was there, the next minute she was gone. And this resulted in a big fight with the mother, with the police. First of all, to take her seriously, that there is no way on this earth that you know your children, don't you? She said that Julie would not just disappear. But of course, the police, because of experience, to be honest, quite often does happen. People do just disappear, go off somewhere, and then turn up a couple of days later. Anyway, this wasn't to happen in Julie's case. Julie did not turn up a couple of days later, but days turned into weeks, turned into months. And it would be 3 months before Julie's fate was realised. But it was an incredible way that you could not make up to put in a book. So Anne, it went through Christmas because this was in November, I think. So Christmas passed. Imagine that first Christmas, still not knowing what's happened to Julie. A 3-year-old boy that Anne and her husband were looking after, asking where his mum is. Where is his mum? What's happened to his mum? So Anne started doing some media interviews and things. Now, in the end, the police did start to take her a bit more seriously. And they actually, this is just incredible. They went into the house and searched it for 5 days. Searched it forensically, and the only evidence really that came out of that was that Anne noticed her makeup bag was still there. And she said, listen, she would never go anywhere without her makeup bag. She liked her makeup. She put her makeup on every day. She's not gone anywhere and not taken her makeup back with her. And I think that's pretty, staple for most women, isn't it? If they wear makeup, you would of course, you'd take your makeup bag with you. You're not going to go off and run away to start a new life, and you're never going to wear any makeup again. Even if you didn't take many possessions like clothes, etc., you certainly would take your makeup bag, your handbag. I presume a handbag was still there. I'm not sure where a handbag is, I must just say. So, 5-day search. Forensic search by the police, and they said to Anne, she's not in this house. We can't find any trace of anything happening in this house. I mean, you've got to wonder, and like when you find out what actually happened, you've got to wonder what sort of a forensic search was that? Did they even try? So anyway, time went on, and Anne and her husband were looking after poor Julie's 3-year-old son, making no progress in anything, and Julie's house was just left. Now, I don't know if it's the house she owned with her ex-husband, because then after a couple of months, her ex-husband said to Anne, Julie's mum, I'm coming back to live in the house. Oh, I should just tell you where this happened. This was in Billingham. This happened in Billingham. Now, let's have a look where Billingham is on Google Maps. Right, okay. So it's Stockton-on-Tees in Tees Valley in England. Let's have a look. Let me show you. So it's not far from, see it, Billingham is up here. Not far from Middlesbrough, Stockton-on-Tees. If we look at it, on the map of the UK, you can see that it's sort of, what would you call it? It's in the north. Yeah, it's not. I've been to Newcastle upon Tyne. I've never been to Billingham. And of course, Scotland is just here. But it's literally, go from Manchester further north. And there it is, Billingham. That's where Julie Hogg lived. That's where this horrible crime happened. Yeah. So that's where it happened. That's where poor Julie was living. Now, after a couple of months, Julie's husband got in touch with Anne and said to her that he was planning on coming back to the house, coming back to the area. So he'd moved out of the area because there was no work, apparently, and he'd got a job outside the area, and then they'd been having all these problems in their relationship. But he contacted Anne out of the blue and said, look, I'm coming back. I'm going to move into the house. So it must have been a house that they owned together, or it could have been a council house, or it could have been their own house. But they must have owned it together for him to be able to move back into it. And he said he was going to then take his son back. So in all that time, Anne had been looking after the little boy, the 3-year-old boy. Anyway, Anne reluctantly agreed because obviously, her grandson was the last tie to Julie. But of course, at the end of the day, he needed to be with his dad. If he lost his mum, then it would be good for him to be with his dad, wouldn't it? So whether their relationship wasn't working because of him moving away, or whether it just wasn't working anyway, and that's any reason, that's a reason why he didn't the relationship wasn't doing well because of moving away, or because it wasn't working well that he moved away. I mean, he said that the relationship, that he moved away to find. So her husband decided to move back into the area, that he was moving back into the house. And he'd hardly been there 5 minutes when he said to Anne, that he'd been noticing a smell coming from the bathroom. So Anne originally said to him, well, look, the house hasn't been used, for 3 months. It's probably the drains, put some bleach down the drains, etc. And probably, just that. Anyway, it didn't get any better. In fact, if anything, it was getting worse. So one day, Anne went round to the house, went up to the bathroom, and Anne was a nurse, and she knew what the smell was immediately. And she went into the bathroom, literally retching with the smell, this horrible smell. And behind the bath panel, now, I don't know if the baths still have those old panels. Here in Spain, where I am, they don't. There's you've got the bath, and then it's normally tiled at the side. But I remember in the UK, so you'd have like these plastic bath panels at the side, and she pulled that away, and there was Julie's decomposing body that had been there for 3 months and had been put there by her murderer. And all that time, Julie was there all the time. And the 5-day forensic search that the police had made had not found it, had not found her. Unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure these days, in today's day and age, they would find her. But still, even then, surely they took dogs in there, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't take dogs, but they hadn't found any forensic evidence whatsoever that anything untoward had happened. Now, to cut a long story short, one of her neighbours, a man called Billy Dunlop, he was arrested for killing Julie. So it's thought that he went round to the house, he tried it on with Julie, who was an attractive 22-year-old, and she rejected him, and he got angry, and he strangled her, basically. But he also abused her corpse, did a lot of horrible things. I'm not going to go into all the details, all the gory details, because it's not fair. But if I just read out to you. So apparently he'd been partying at Billingham Rugby Club that night, and he'd been binge drinking, he'd been harassing strippers, good old strip, these good old working men's clubs and rugby clubs and that, having strippers, lovely. And then after he got into a fight, he went to hospital for an eye injury, he got discharged, and then he went round to see Julie. Now, he knew her from the local area, and he was expecting that she would have sex with him. Anyway, apparently she declined his advances. Whether she'd ever had sex with him before, I don't know. But that particular night, she declined his advances. She made a joke about his eye, and he just went into a rage. This is what he told officers later. And he strangled her to death. And apparently it was a truly horrendous attack. So he then wrapped her in a blanket, apparently, and he hid her in behind the bath. Now, apparently, when the police searched Julie's house for the second time, they did discover her bank cards and her diary hidden in the loft. And that's when a full-scale murder investigation was launched. But this is after the body had been found, of course. So they started looking into men that Julie had been linked to, and the DNA on the blanket she was wrapped in ruled most of them out, except for one, which was Billy Dunlop. And he lived 2 streets away. So her keys were found in Billy Dunlop's home, hidden under his floorboards, and he was arrested on the 13th of February 1990, 89 days after she disappeared. So he had 89 days probably thinking he'd got away with it, but he hadn't. He hadn't got away with it. Having said that, he nearly got away with it, because then he went on trial on the 7th of May 1991. There was fingerprint evidence on her keys. His DNA from SPERM was on the blanket he'd wrapped her in. There were fibres from the jumper he'd been wearing at the rugby club at the time. But the jury, incredibly, failed to reach a verdict. Gosh, you would have liked to have been a fly on the wall and understand why. So the judge ordered a retrial for the 3rd of October 1991. I wonder why that jury did not find him guilty with all that evidence. But anyway, Dunlop's defence team attempted to convince the jury that Hogg had died of natural causes following a consensual act of sex. So the jury failed to reach a verdict for the second time, and Dunlop was acquitted, and he could never be trialled again due to the double jeopardy law, which goes right back to the Magna Carta, 800 years. So he walked out a free man, and weeks later, Anne Ming heard he'd been bragging about killing her daughter in their town. I mean, he was a real piece of shit. You know, this man, this wasn't an isolated incident for this man. He was a violent man. People in the area were terrified of him, because, and it's thought that that's why maybe a lot of people wouldn't speak out against him. So later on, in 1998, he was serving time in prison for attacking another woman. And he wrote letters to his ex and a friend, and he admitted to Julie's murder. The police wanted to arrest him for perjury, but they needed more evidence than a simple admission. So a female prison officer wore a wire and obtained 90 hours of material about what happened on the night of Julie's death. He was arrested. He pleaded guilty finally to the murder, and he was jailed for 6 years. To be served consecutively to his existing sentence. Now, of course, Anne, she wasn't happy with this at all. A perjury charge. So he got 6 years because the charge was just perjury, not murder. So anyway, that's where Anne's story really starts. Her fight for justice for her daughter, to change the law. So this series that has just started on ITV is called I Changed the Law. I would definitely recommend you watch it. If the first episode was anything to go by, it's very well acted. It's very it's key as well to justice for other people, isn't it? You know, and it's ridiculous that people can't be tried again for the same crime, especially if new evidence comes up and things like that. You know, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, it seems like, I suppose this is it that I've said so many times. When someone's murdered, the only people are there are the victim and the murderer. So it's their word against each other. But of course, the victim hasn't got a voice. Their voice is forensic evidence, isn't it? The forensic specialists give them a voice, but they can't say their side of what happened. So all the benefits are on the perpetrator's side, aren't they? So they should be able. So, you know, if that's what the defence played on in this case, they said, you know, that Julie had participated in sex voluntarily with him and then died by accident or whatever, I don't know, or of natural causes. And I don't know if, you know, the forensics could pick up those kind of things, but they certainly could pick up the SEMEN on the blanket that she was covered in. So there's obviously SEX involved in it. Anyway, that's what Anne set out to change. She set out to change that law, that people, the best the police could do was charge him with perjury, even though they had a confession from him. But they couldn't charge him for the same crime again because of this double jeopardy law. Now, she didn't rest. Anne, she Anne's still alive. She's been successful in what she's, what she's fought for her daughter, and it will help other people, won't it, in the future? So I'm getting emotional now, because it's always fantastic, isn't it, when someone who's been through such a trauma, and don't forget, she found her own daughter behind the bath. Do you imagine that? Going in there and smelling that smell, and then thinking, oh my God, and then looking, and there's your daughter. It's been missing for 3 months. So the law on double jeopardy has changed. And so the Court of Appeal was able to direct that he be tried again for murder. And he had a string of convictions, relatively minor, but a lot of it was dishonesty, assault. Each actual crime was sort of a small crime in one way, but of course all built up to a big crime. So from 1988 to 1998, Dunlop was drinking heavily and committing numerous offences of violence for which he was not prosecuted, because he was well known in the area and he cultivated his notoriety as a violent person. And of course, a lot of people were scared then of him and the consequences of reporting him to the police. Terrible, isn't it? Anyway, he assaulted women. Now, when he was finally charged with killing Julie, he pled guilty to murdering her. And on October the 6th, 2006, at the Central Criminal Court, he was, he wasn't found guilty because he pled guilty, but he was sentenced to, now hold your breath here, let me just find that again, what the actual sentence was. Because as you can imagine, 17 years. 17 years for a life, for murdering a young mother, 22-year-old girl, mother of a 3-year-old boy, just because she refused his advances and maybe made a little bit of a joke about his eye or whatever. So, 17 years that he had to serve before he could be considered for parole. And that expired on the 15th of September 2021. And the parole board, now listen to this, the parole board, sometimes you just don't know about these parole boards. They had recommended that he be moved to an open prison. How much violence do you have to commit? How many murders do you have to commit? Before you're actually, just lock you up and throw away the key. Anyway, the parole board had recommended that he should be moved to an open prison, but the Justice Secretary at the time, Shabana Mahmood, blocked the transfer. And the family of Julie Hogg said they were elated, and they said that for once, Shabana, not her, but the government, if you like, politicians had truly put victims at the heart of the system. So apparently, he had hoped to be released into the community. Anyway, he withdrew this application last year, and he said he would be suited better to open prison conditions. Oh, will he get put in open prison? The thing is, they blocked his transfer to an open prison at the moment. What's going to happen next time? I think it will be a constant fight for Anne and the rest of the family. Every time it comes up for parole, they'll have to hope that whoever the Justice Secretary is at the time will continue to block him being moved to an open prison. Because he is a danger to society. I just don't understand how he could even be considered for open prison after what he's done. Because it's not only the murder of Julie, which is bad enough, concealing her body, abusing her body. But then it's all the other things he's done. You know, this guy's not a shoplifter. You know, he's not been caught of possession of a spliff. You know, these are serious crimes, multiple assault, violent crimes, and they're going to put him in an open prison. Well, I hope for the sake of Billingham and the area in general, I hope that never happens. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this because I watched this first series last night and I was just struck by, you know, quite often I am struck by the victims' families and how they can turn things into a positive because you just must be on the floor. You know, when this kind of thing happens, you just can't imagine how it must feel. You must be on the floor. So to pick yourself up and to do something positive with it, it's just amazing, you know, people's strength. You never underestimate the strength of a mother or a father or you know, love. When someone you love has come to this fate. Never underestimate the strength of some people. Now, everyone's different. Not everybody does this kind of thing. I've noticed that there are some victims' families just want total privacy. They don't want to keep, you know, they don't want to be in the public eye. And that's their way of dealing with their loss, which is fine as well. You know, I'm not criticizing that. But then you get other people, they want to turn it into something positive. Their loss into something positive, make their loved one's name be remembered. I mean, to me, I think if that was me, and I hope to God it never is, but I think every time your loved one's name is spoken or their photo is shared or people talk about them, they are still alive, aren't they, in a way? Not just forgotten. That would be how I would feel. You know, Julie, 1989, she was only 22 years old. You know, so she was born in, 67? So, you know, she'd be in her 60s, late 60s now. She might have grandchildren. She's lost all that, hasn't she? You know, it's now you know I'm not very good with maths, so I'm just going to change that, check that. So 1989, she was 22, so that means, yeah, she was born in 67. Yeah, so so she wouldn't be in her early 60s. God. If she was born in 67, she'd be in her late 50s. Young. You know, that's young in today's day and age standards. All that life denied to her. This man should never be free, in my opinion. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Julie. Let me put a candle up for her. And also, want to say some prayers for her mum and the rest of the family. It's just fabulous that she had the strength to do this. And not only that she's seen the result of it. You know, it's not one of those things that's happened like after she's left this world as well. She's seen it, the result of it, and I'm so glad for that. As for this twonk, you know what, I hope he never comes out of prison. What piece of shit. You know, what piece of shit. So so when you think about what people offer to the world, sometimes in a short life, you know, and Julie didn't get much chance, did she, to, you know, she didn't fulfill her true potential, but she had a son. She gave, her mum loved her. And now indirectly through her death, she's given this chance to hopefully help victims in the future. And we think, what was Billy Dunlop given to the world? Upset, intimidation, fear. He's just a horrible person. He's just given nothing. Hope he goes to hell. I might put him in the hellhole, actually. What piece of hot. So he sat there, lived 2 streets away. He knew exactly where Julie was. When they were all when the neighbour, when Anne was knocking on all the neighbours' doors, asking if they knew anything about what had happened to her daughter, he knew exactly where she was, under the bath. And he must have thought, when the police went in, he must have thought, oh my God, they're going to find her. And then the police were totally incompetent. I think they've held their hands up to that. How could they not find her? How could they not find her when her own mother found her? Within minutes of smelling that smell, she knew exactly what it is, what it was. How could they not find her? It's just beyond me. They can't have taken dogs in, because I'm sure dogs would have found her. Because even within a few days, not to put too fine a point on it, but she would have been decomposing. Anyway, as I say, thank you for watching. Watch that series if you get a chance. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you, as always, to all of you that support my channel. Thank you for your Ko-fis you bought me. Thank you for the super stickers. Thank you especially to my members. And yeah, I'll see you really soon in the next video. But until then, may your God go with you. Bye.